The studio lights cast a sharp glow over the sleek interview set. Melania Trump sits with perfect posture, her expression calm and unreadable. Across from her, veteran TV host Elliot Graham leans forward, his tone laced with subtle condescension. Mrs. Trump, many believe your role as First Lady was largely ceremonial. Do you think you truly made an impact? Or were you simply in the background? A pause lingers. Melania tilts her head slightly, her eyes locked onto Graham's with quiet confidence. When people underestimate you, they reveal more about themselves than about you. A flicker of surprise flashes across Graham's face. He wasn't expecting that. He clears his throat, shifting in his seat. That's an interesting perspective. But surely, you must acknowledge. I do not need to acknowledge anything. My work speaks for itself, whether you choose to see it or not. The air in the studio shifts. The control of the conversation has changed hands, and everyone watching knows it. Graham hesitates for the briefest moment before forcing a tight smile, trying to pivot. But the moment is already out of his grasp. Social media is already ablaze. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire, headlines flashing across screens. Melania shuts down host. TV interview turns viral. A masterclass in composure. Back in the studio, Graham attempts to move on, but Melania remains, poised, unshaken. The interview continues, but the moment that will be remembered has already happened. The tension in the studio lingers, an unspoken acknowledgement of the shift in power. Elliot Graham forces a chuckle, attempting to regain control. Well, Mrs. Trump, some critics argue that your initiatives, like Be Best, lacked real impact. Do you think it truly made a difference? Melania Trump remains composed, her expression unreadable. She waits a moment before responding, her voice measured and unwavering. True change does not come from loud words. It comes from quiet actions. The lives I have touched, the children I have helped, they know the difference. That is what matters. Graham's smile falters. He expected defensiveness, not certainty. He shuffles his notes, searching for a way to steer the conversation back in his favor. But don't you think some would say? Melania interrupts, her voice firm but calm. People will always say many things. That does not make them true. The audience, both in the studio and watching from home, can feel the weight of her words. Graham, clearly aware that he is losing control of the narrative, leans back slightly, choosing his next words carefully. You have remained relatively private since leaving the White House. Why not take more opportunities like this to address your critics? Melania offers a small, knowing smile. I do not seek attention. Attention seeks me. Silence. The studio is still, the moment stretching between them. Graham has no quick comeback, no clever retort. He shifts in his seat, realizing the dynamic has fully slipped from his grasp. Online, the reaction is instantaneous. Social media explodes with praise, debate, and viral clips of the interview. The hashtags Melania Speaks, Zakusi Masterclass, and Silenced go trending within minutes. Back on set, Graham finally exhales, pasting on a professional smile. Well, Mrs. Trump, I appreciate your time today. Melania simply nods, offering a polite but distant smile. Thank you. The interview ends, but its impact is just beginning. The internet is ablaze, news outlets dissect every word, and debates rage on. Some call it calculated elegance, others a rare moment of authenticity. But one thing is undeniable. Melania Trump just owned the moment, and the world is watching. As the cameras cut to a commercial break, Elliot Graham leans back in his chair, exhaling quietly. He forces a tight smile, but the tension in his posture betrays his frustration. Melania Trump remains poised, unfazed, as crew members rush around. The set. The control room buzzes with excitement. Producers exchange glances, already sensing the magnitude of what just happened. The interview wasn't just another political sit-down, it was a viral moment in the making. Clips are already being prepared for social media, captions being written to capture the most powerful exchanges. Back in the studio, a production assistant approaches Melania. "Mrs. Trump, would you like a moment before the next segment?" Melania offers a polite but firm shake of her head. "I am fine, thank you." Elliot, sensing an opportunity to smooth things over, leans slightly toward her. "That was quite the answer back there," he says with a half-smirk, trying to regain some control of the moment. Melania meets his gaze with the same composed expression she held throughout the interview. Truth does not need to be rehearsed. Elliot has no response. The silence stretches between them for just a beat too long before the floor manager calls out, "Back in 30 seconds." Meanwhile, outside the studio, social media is already ablaze. News sites scramble to publish articles dissecting every moment of the interview. Headlines flood the internet. Melania Trump dismantles, TV host in viral exchange. Elliot Graham stunned by Melania's unshakable composure. Masterclass or media showdown? The interview that has everyone talking. Twitter, X, is in a frenzy. Clips of the key moments rack up millions of views within minutes. Celebrities, political analysts, and everyday users weigh in with their takes. Some call her responses AEE, brilliant display of confidence, while others argue she dodged tough questions with calculated deflections. Regardless of the perspective, one thing is clear: everyone is talking about Melania Trump. Inside the studio, the countdown reaches its final seconds. Elliot straightens his tie, forcing a confident expression back onto his face. The camera operator signals, and the red light blinks on. Welcome back. We continue our conversation with former First Lady Melania Trump. But the world already knows. The moment has happened. The internet has decided. And no matter how the rest of the interview unfolds, Melania has already won the night. As the cameras roll again, Elliot Graham forces a professional smile, but there's a new tension in his voice. He knows the dynamic has shifted. The audience knows it too. "Mrs. Trump, let's talk about the future. Many speculate about your role in the upcoming election. Will you be more involved this time?" Melania remains poised, her hands resting gently in her lap. She takes a measured breath before responding. "I support my husband, as I always have. But I do not seek the spotlight. My focus remains on meaningful work, not political theater." Elliot raises an eyebrow, sensing a chance to press further. "So, does that mean you will take a more active role, or will you continue to stay out of the public eye?" Melania's expression remains unreadable. Being quiet does not mean being absent. Presence is not measured by noise. The words hang in the air, simple yet cutting. Elliot shifts slightly in his seat, adjusting his notes. He was hoping for a headline-worthy confirmation, an announcement, a tease, something to feed the political frenzy. Instead, he got another lesson in composure. The control room is already buzzing. Producers exchange glances as social media reactions flood in. Did she just shut him down again? One murmurs. On Twitter, X, a new wave of reactions surges. Melania speaks volumes without saying much. A masterclass. She just keeps flipping the power dynamic. Graham is struggling. Political theater? She just called out the whole system. Facts few. In the studio, Elliot tries one last time to regain control. Your critics say that by staying silent, you allow others to shape your narrative. Do you worry about that? Melania tilts her head slightly, a small, knowing smile forming. Those who wish to misunderstand will do so, no matter what you say. I do not live to convince them. The silence that follows is undeniable. Even Elliot knows there's nowhere left to go. He exhales, offers a tight smile, and nods. Well, Mrs. Trump, I appreciate your time today. Melania simply nods back. Thank you. The camera's cut, and just like that, the interview is over. But its impact is just beginning. Within minutes, news outlets scramble to dissect every word. Clips of the exchange continue to flood social media. Pundits on both sides rush to analyze her comments. Supporters praise her calm strength, calling it a rare display of quiet power. Critics accuse her of being evasive, saying she dodged every tough question with rehearsed lines. Regardless of opinion, one thing is undeniable. Melania Trump has once again dominated the conversation without raising her voice. As she stands to leave, a producer whispers to a colleague, "This interview isn't just trending, it's defining." And just like that, Melania walks off the set, poised as ever, leaving the media storm swirling in her wake. As Melania Trump exits the studio, the buzz behind the scenes is undeniable. Crew members exchange glances, whispering about what just happened. Elliot Graham remains seated for a moment, staring at his notes, knowing he has lost control of the narrative. Outside the studio, Melania walks gracefully down the hallway, escorted by her team. A journalist waiting nearby calls out, "Mrs. Trump, any final thoughts on the interview?" Without breaking stride, she simply says, "The interview speaks for itself." Her team leads her to a waiting black SUV. The door opens, and she steps inside, disappearing from view just as the online firestorm erupts into full-blown chaos. On cable news, anchors scramble to analyze the interview. Was this a strategic move from Melania Trump, or just her natural demeanor? One panelist asks. She didn't just dodge tough questions, she controlled the conversation, another replies. Political commentators take sides. Some praise her for her unshakable confidence, while others criticize her for avoiding real answers. But the more they debate, the more viral the moment becomes. Meanwhile, at Trump Tower, Donald Trump watches the coverage from his private office. A smirk crosses his face as he leans back in his chair. "That's my Melania," he mutters. Across the country, supporters rally behind her on social media. Memes flood the internet, one showing Elliot Graham looking stunned, captioned, "When you realize you just lost the interview." Another features Melania with the words, "Power isn't loud, it's undeniable." Hashtags like Melania Speaks, Unshaken, and Grace Under Fire dominate the trending list. Even late-night hosts jump in, replaying clips with commentary, adding fuel to the viral moment. By morning, the interview is everywhere. News outlets publish think pieces about Melania's quiet strength, while political strategists speculate on what her controlled performance means for the future. One thing is clear: Melania Trump has once again captivated the public. without raising her voice, without reacting emotionally, she has left the world talking. And, as always, she did it entirely on her own terms. The next morning, the media frenzy shows no signs of slowing down. News anchors, political analysts, and social media influencers dissect every word, every pause, every glance from Melania Trump's interview. On cable news, a heated debate unfolds. Was this a strategic move by Melania, or just her natural demeanor? Asks one anchor. She didn't dodge questions, she mastered them, a commentator responds. She controlled the conversation without raising her voice. That's a rare skill. Meanwhile, critics argue that she was too vague, too rehearsed, but even they can't deny the impact. The more they talk about her, the more powerful the moment becomes. At Trump Tower, Donald Trump scrolls through social media, watching clips of the interview with a satisfied grin. He picks up his phone, dials a number, and leans back in his chair. That was perfect, Melania. They don't know what to do with you. Across the country, Melania's supporters rally behind her. Fan accounts flood Instagram and Twitter with clips of the interview praising her grace under fire. One viral meme reads, "Power doesn't need to shout." Another shows a stunned Elliot Graham with the caption, "When you realize you lost the interview." Even mainstream celebrities jump in. A famous actress tweets, "Whether you like her or not, Melania just gave a masterclass in composure." At ADE, major news network, producers rush to schedule follow-ups. They reach out to political analysts, former White House insiders, and media strategists. Everyone wants to weigh in. An editor at a top newspaper greenlights an op-ed titled, "The Melania Trump Effect: How Silence Can Be the Loudest Statement." By evening, late-night talk shows poke fun at the moment, replaying clips with exaggerated commentary. But even the jokes can't overshadow the truth. Melania Trump owned the moment, and everyone knows it. In a quiet, private residence away from the media chaos, Melania sips her tea as she watches the coverage. She doesn't react. She doesn't need to. The world is still talking, and, as always, she remains in control. The media storm continues for days. Every major news outlet, political podcast, and social media platform is buzzing with takes on Melania Trump's interview. Some hail it as a brilliant display of quiet dominance, while others claim she dodged accountability with vague responses. At a high-profile political roundtable, experts analyze her performance. "This wasn't just an interview. It was a statement," says a former White House advisor. "She showed that she doesn't need to be loud to be powerful." Another panelist disagrees. She avoided real answers. She's mastered the art of saying a lot without actually committing to anything. Regardless of the opinion, one thing is clear. Melania Trump is once again at the center of national conversation. Meanwhile, at Trump Tower, her team fields endless requests for follow-up interviews. Journalists want exclusive sit-downs. News networks are offering primetime specials. Even talk shows, which once ridiculed her, now want her on their couches. A close aide approaches Melania with a list of offers. Everyone wants a piece of this moment. What do you think? Melania glances at the papers but doesn't react. Instead, she simply says, "Let them talk." She has no intention of feeding the media machine further. The more they speculate, the more powerful the moment becomes. In Washington, political strategists scramble to interpret what this means for Donald Trump's potential campaign. Does this signal a more public role for Melania? One strategist asks. If she does even one more interview like this, it could change everything, another replies. Meanwhile, Opposition figures try to downplay the moment, but their dismissals only add to the intrigue. Online, the debate intensifies. Supporters praise her. She proved you don't need to shout to command respect. Critics push back. She didn't answer anything. How is that impressive? But the viral nature of the moment ensures one thing: Melania Trump remains in control of the narrative. A week later, a new headline surfaces. Melania turns down multiple interview requests. The silence is louder than ever. And just like that, she disappears from the public eye again, leaving the world to keep talking. Done. Weeks pass, but the impact of Melania Trump's interview refuses to fade. News cycles move on to other stories, yet her name continues to trend. Every time the conversation seems to quiet, a new opinion piece, viral clip, or political debate reignites the discussion. At a major cable news network, a producer pitches a special segment. We need to revisit this. People are still talking about it. Why did this interview make such an impact? A senior anchor nods. Because it was unexpected. No scandals, no outbursts, just quiet control. It's the opposite of what we usually see. Meanwhile, political. Strategists behind the scenes are growing restless. She's more popular than we thought, one Republican strategist notes in a closed-door meeting. This kind of attention is rare, especially for someone who speaks so little. A senior campaign advisor adds, if she does just one more public appearance, it could be a game-changer. But inside Trump Tower, Melania remains unmoved by the noise. Her team presents her with new opportunities, exclusive sit-downs, feature articles, even lucrative book deals. Every network is eager to get her next statement. She simply shakes her head. Not interested. Her refusal to engage further only makes the public more fascinated. Online, supporters begin referring to her as the silent power, a stark contrast to the often chaotic world of politics. At a Democratic strategy meeting, a consultant expresses frustration. This is why she's so effective. She says nothing, and it becomes everything. Even late-night comedians who once mocked her start acknowledging her strategic silence. She's doing something rare in politics, letting the media work for her, one jokes. Imagine if all politicians did that. We'd be out of a job. Then, out of nowhere, a single move from Melania sends shockwaves through the political world. She is spotted at a high-profile charity gala in New York City, her first public appearance since the interview. Cameras flash as she enters in an elegant, understated gown. No speeches, no statements, just a simple, graceful presence. The internet explodes. Hashtags like Melania returns, silent power, and still in control trend within minutes. Pundits scramble to analyze the meaning behind her appearance. Is this a subtle sign of support for her husband's campaign? One anchor asks. Or is she simply reminding the world that she's still here, without saying a word? Another suggests. As Melania leaves the event, a reporter calls out, Mrs. Trump, any comment on your recent interview? She turns slightly, offers a small, knowing smile, and steps into her car. No words. No statements. And yet, she remains the most talked-about woman in America.